Hey guys, welcome back. We are in chapter 12, section 3, beginning on page 372. The title of this section is War with Mexico. Page 372, War with Mexico, American Diary. Spanish conquistadors brought the first cattle and horses to North America. As Mexicans settled in present-day California, many became cowhands. They herded cattle on California's large ranches. These Mexican cowhands were called vaqueros and were the first cowboys of the American West. People of other nationalities soon populated the region, but Spanish culture still influences California's people today. Page 373. The New Mexico Territory. Main idea. The Santa Fe Trail was a busy trade route from Missouri to the large Mexican province of New Mexico. History and you. Can you imagine finding your way from Missouri to New Mexico without roads? Read how a trader established the Santa Fe Trail. In the early 1800s, New Mexico was the vast region between the Texas and California territories. It included all of present-day New Mexico, Arizona, Nevada, and Utah, and parts of Colorado and Wyoming. Native Americans had lived in the area for thousands of years. Spanish conquistadors began exploring there in the late 1500s and made it part of Spain's colony of Mexico. In 1610, the Spanish founded the settlement of Santa Fe. Missionaries followed soon after. When Mexico won its independence in 1821, it inherited New Mexico from Spain. The Spanish had tried to keep Americans away from Santa Fe, fearing that Americans would want to take over the area. The Mexican government, however, welcomed American traders. It hoped that the trade would boost the economy of the province. William Becknell, the first American trader to reach Santa Fe, arrived in 1821 with a supply of goods. Becknell's route came to be known as the Santa Fe Trail. The trail started near Independence, Missouri, and crossed the prairies to the Arkansas River. It followed the river west toward the Rocky Mountains before turning south into New Mexico. The trail was mostly flat, and Becknell used wagons to transport his goods. Other traders followed Becknell, and the Santa Fe Trail became a busy trade route. As trade with New Mexico increased, Americans began settling in the area. Many saw New Mexico as part of the manifest destiny of the United States. Reading check. Describing. Where did the Santa Fe Trail begin and end? Page 374. California's Spanish culture. Main idea. California was settled by Mexicans. History and you. Did you know that Los Angeles means the angels in Spanish? Read to learn about California's Spanish heritage. Spanish explorers and missionaries from Mexico settled California in the 1700s. Captain Gaspar de Portolo and Father Junipero Serra built a chain of missions that eventually extended from San Diego to Sonoma. The missions were used to convert Native Americans to Christianity. Native Americans also farmed the land and worked at weaving and other crafts. American mountain man Jedediah Smith described the missions as large farming and grazing establishments. After Mexico gained its independence from Spain in 1821, California became a state in the new Mexican nation. Mexican settlers bought available mission lands and set up huge estates called ranchos. Native Americans worked the land in return for food and shelter. Rancheros, ranch owners, treated Native Americans almost like slaves. In the 1840s, more Americans reached California. John C. Fremont, an Army officer, wrote of the region's mild climate and vast natural resources. Americans began to talk about adding California to the Union. They argued that the nation would then be safely bordered by the Pacific Ocean rather than by a foreign country. Shippers also hoped to build ports on the Pacific coast for trade with East Asia. Reading check. Examining. What was the purpose of the California missions? Page 375. War with Mexico. Main idea. War broke out between the United States and Mexico. History and you. Think about how important California is to the United States. Read to find out how the United States acquired this land from Mexico. President Polk saw New Mexico and California as belonging to the United States. After Mexico refused to sell the lands, Polk plotted to gain them through war. Polk, however, wanted to provoke Mexico to strike first so that he could justify a war. Relations between the two countries were strained. Mexico still claimed Texas as its own. The two nations also disagreed about the Texas-Mexico border. The United States insisted that the Rio Grande formed the border. Mexico claimed that the border lay along the Nueces River, 150 miles or 241 kilometers farther north. Conflict begins. Polk sent John Slidell to Mexico to propose a deal. Slidell was authorized to offer $30 million for California and New Mexico in return for Mexico's acceptance of the Rio Grande as the Texas boundary. In addition, the United States would take over payment of Mexico's debts to American citizens. The Mexican government refused to discuss the offer and announced its intention to reclaim Texas for Mexico. Polk ordered General Zachary Taylor to march his soldiers across the disputed borderland. On April 24, 1846, Mexican soldiers attacked Taylor's force. Taylor sent the report to the president. Taylor sent the report the president wanted to hear. Quote, "Hostilities may now be considered as begun." Close quote. On May 11th, the president told Congress that Mexico had invaded our territory and shed American blood upon the American soil. Congress passed a declaration of war against Mexico. Page 376. Oh, sorry, toothless. Polk's war plan. Polk's war plan had three parts. First, American troops would drive Mexican forces out of the disputed border region in Texas and secure the border. Second, the United States would seize New Mexico and California. Finally, American forces would take Mexico City, the capital of Mexico. Zachary Taylor accomplished the first goal. By early 1847, his army had captured the towns of Matamoros, Monterrey, and Buena Vista. The Texas border was secure. While Taylor made progress in northern Mexico, American forces also advanced farther west. General Stephen Watts Kearny led about 1,500 troops along the Santa Fe Trail from Fort Leavenworth to New Mexico. The Mexican governor fled, allowing the Americans to capture New Mexico's capital, Santa Fe, on August 18, 1846, without firing a shot. Kearny then led his army across the desert toward California. The Bear Flag Republic. In June 1846, a small group of Americans seized the town of Sonoma, north of San Francisco, and proclaimed the independent Republic of California. They called the new country the Bear Flag Republic. John C. Fremont and mountain man Kit Carson also met in Sonoma. Fremont declared that he would conquer California. Many Californios, the Mexicans who lived in California, were outraged by his declaration. They might have supported a revolt for local control, but they opposed what looked like an attempt to seize land. In July 1846, the United States Navy force under Commodore John Sloat captured the ports of Monterey and San Francisco. Sloat declared California annexed to the United States. Sloat's fleet sailed for San Diego, carrying Fremont and Carson. The Americans captured San Diego and moved north to Los Angeles. After Sloat's ships left, many Californios in San Diego rose up against the Americans who had taken over the city. General Kearny and his troops put down the revolt. By January 1847, California was truly controlled by the United States. The capture of Mexico City. President Polk gave the task of capturing Mexico City to General Winfield Scott. In March 1847, Scott's army landed near the Mexico port of Veracruz. The army captured Veracruz after a 3-week siege and then fought its way some 300 miles to Mexico City. By mid-September 1847, the Americans had taken Mexico City. The Mexican government surrendered. It would also be forced to surrender half of its territory. The United States expands. The Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo was signed in February 1848. Mexico gave up Texas and agreed to the Rio Grande as the border between Texas and Mexico. In what was called the Mexican Cession, Mexico ceded or gave California and New Mexico to the United States for the price of $15 million. In 1853, the United States paid Mexico $10 million for the Gadsden Purchase, a strip of land along the southern edge of present-day Arizona and New Mexico. With the Gadsden Purchase, the U.S. mainland reached its present size. Reading check. Evaluating. Was President Polk's war plan successful? Explain. Section 3 Review. Number 1, define each of the following terms. Rancho, ranchero, resource, commence, Californios, seed. Main ideas. Number 2, specifying. What was the original purpose of the Santa Fe Trail? Number 3, explaining. Why did Americans want to acquire California? Okay, guys, that's Chapter 12, Section 3. Tootless and I wish you a good rest of the day or whatever you're doing. And enjoy history, keep reading, and we'll catch you later. Coakley and Toothless out.